Recalculating the route. Turn right. Then in 50 meters turn left.
Okay, so this is the second test drive of using organic maps. So I've set it up and I'm just simply going to follow the route that it suggests. Now, as I normally I don't think I would actually go this route, but let's do it. And then let's also then compare the route to previous videos that I've done and see how the time differs. In actual fact, it's actually quite good to use videos of different routes to go.
Turn left, then turn right.
To go from the same start and end positions. Because what we think is a good route, sometimes the navigation app will provide perhaps a better route.
Camera ahead.
Okay, now in this drive I've actually turned the camera notifications on. It's an option. In the previous drive I didn't know whether that was possible or not. And I've also turned off the turned on the option of no tolls, so I won't be pointed towards the Eastland tolls. So and basically most of this is probably similar to the way that I'd probably drive. Not quite. I think it's going to send me up the freeway up near Doncaster Shopping down Williamson's Road, whereas normally I would simply go this way, turn up Springvale Road to Mitcham Road, and then along Doncaster Road, down Blackburn Road, along Foot Street, or Reynolds Road, Foot Street. So So up here, it's told us that there's a speed camera, and there is. It's telling us it's 60 kilometres an hour, which is the speed limit. It's amazing how the speed limit shown on here, on the left-hand side here, shown on the right on Magic Earth, this is only slightly bigger. Magic Earth is bigger than Waze, and this is slightly bigger again. And this size, I can actually read this quite comfortably. So really, they could provide an option, select your size, small, medium or large or something, and provide an option for those who want to see it slightly bigger. And that would make the application friendlier. So always have to be careful of these red light speed cameras. One thing that people don't realise is that the amber timing on turn arrows is set shorter than the amber timing for going straight ahead. So the default time is 3 seconds, and it's written somewhere in a Vic Roads manual, supposedly, according to the traffic commissioner. And for this sort of road, it doesn't matter, it's small, so you just have to be mindful that you don't have enough time, have as much time when you're doing a turn as you do when you're going straight ahead. And the problem with that is on, say, a straight through road that might be 80, I don't know the exact timings, you might get 6.5 seconds, 6 seconds on amber, plenty of time to go through, and you're coming up and you move into the right hand lane, you see that it's a green turn arrow, and you approach it with the aim of reaching about 40 to 45 to turn. But you're not at 40 to 45 as you're driving. You're at 80, 70, 60, 50. Now, if you're not down at 45, or slightly, around about 45 kilometres an hour, a good, I think I'd be guessing about 50, 60 metres, about 3 house blocks back from the arrow, then the arrow's going to change too fast for you and you will get booked by a red light speed camera. I think that's wrong. And in fact, overseas, there's a person who called themselves an engineer and didn't call themselves an engineer, did an engineering task. And it took them years.
Keep right, then turn right.
It took him years to fight that he was accused of calling himself an engineer. Anyway, after that was all cleared up, after a couple of years, basically what he was saying was that the speed or the timing for the turn arrow should be set to basically halfway between the road speed limit and what the expected turn speed limit is. So if the turn speed limit is 45 kilometres per hour or 40, and the road is 80, then it should be treated like it's a 60 kilometre hour turn. And I think that, and he showed the maths that works. Now, supposedly that's going to be accepted as an international standard. It will take a number of years and that will come through to Australia because we follow the rest of the world, generally speaking. So that standard will become part of the international standards, which will then become part of our standard. But until then, so many people are getting shafted by the shorter turn arrows. And if you have a look at it, there are a lot of intersections where there are actually more fines for people turning right than there are for people going straight ahead. But of course people are impatient, so there's a lot of people who just want to, I'm not going to sit here for another set of lights, so I'm going through. Unfortunately, you don't do that where there's a red light camera. So if you use
turn right,
like organic maps, Magic Earth,
in
Waze,
400 meters keep right,
or even
then in 200 meters sharp left,
or even my own speed limit alerts, speed limit camera alerts, anything that can alert you to the camera, so
keep
that
right, then in 200 meters sharp left.
So that you're more on your guard. Unfortunately, this is just the way of life, that as I approach a traffic light that has a red light speed camera, I will slow down.
Sharp
and make sure.
left, then turn right.
Yep, those instructions there are a bit weird on the phone. I'm going straight ahead. I don't need to move lanes. So I don't know what the heck it's trying to tell me. But anyway, I know where I'm going, so you tend to ignore the navigation app. So it'll be interesting to look back and see what it was trying to do. Anyway, that's one of my beef. I actually don't think there's enough speed limit signs around the place. But really, does that matter? Because watching other people drive, how much do people really care? I watch them go through roadwork where it says 40 kilometres an hour, and the majority of cars simply ignore those speed limits. A lot of people see if it's 60, yeah, we can go around 60, we can go a bit faster than 60. They're not as rigid in their thinking, and I think that's a good thing. I'm rigid in my thinking, and I probably am more of a stickler for the rules. That's the way I live my life. But other people don't live their life. There's those people who don't care one iota about the rules. So, and that's their choice, and they live quite happy lives. So it's not wrong to think like that. It's just people's choice. So here we're coming up to an 80, and it says 60 during school times. Now I think it's probably school times, No, I think it's school holidays. So there you go. I'm useless. Because I don't have kids at home. I'm retired. I don't have kids around me all the time. I don't think about school being in or out. I actually don't know if it's school time or not. So I have to really, really try to think hard about it. I think it's not school times in Victoria at the moment. That starts on the weekend, if I'm right. So we'll come up here, and the good thing is that the speed limits are off, so that means it must be school holidays. So that's the problem, is not everybody knows when it's school holidays, and we just assume that everybody knows. Wouldn't have a clue. But luckily now they've got, in most of the school zones, they have it's either fixed 40, for example, or 60, or it's got a flashing red light. So and this particular, I have checked this section of the road. The OpenStreetMap data for this section of road is not correct, and it simply has 80 kilometres an hour. So it wouldn't matter if it's school zone or not school zone. If when I say that, if it was a school zone, the map wouldn't tell me the right speed. That's just simply because the data hasn't been updated to have the right speed. So no application is 100% perfect. Things change. It takes time for those changes to filter through. And the good thing about the OpenStreetMap is, in theory, with enough effort to learn how to do it, anybody can participate in the changing of the maps. So picked up the change from 80 to 70 at the right spot, so that was excellent. Now, one of the settings there was that it would warn me, did I want speed cameras to be alerted to cameras if I was actually speeding, and I said or always, or not at all. So I actually said always let me know, because I always want to know about the heightened situation with potential for financial risk to myself. I don't speed, but sometimes I don't know what the speed limit is, and so if I know there's a camera there, I can adjust accordingly and reduce the chances of getting a fine. So the main thing is really not to get a fine, to drive at or near the speed limit as appropriate for the situation, but also to avoid taking risk where possible. My dash cam does have cameras in it and notifications for school zones, and it's a Navman dash cam. It's a 4K Pro, and I've found it to be so terrible that I've disabled every one of those features, and basically it's a dash cam to take videos of the driving. So forward alerts, line departure, all terrible. False alerts for school zones that haven't existed as school zones for absolute ages. I just thought it was just not good enough. So I've removed all those, and I find that using a navigation app such as Waze, such as Magic Earth, or even Organic Map,
Camera ahead.
it does a better job. So if you want a 4K dash camera, then I wouldn't recommend this one, because memory cards and compatibility have been an issue for me. I would say a HD is more than adequate. You won't see the number plates of the cars if they're too far away from you. You don't see much of an angle, so if you're actually turning around a roundabout, you don't really get much of a view from left or right. What it will show you as evidence is if you run up the back of somebody, and it will show what your actions were around the time that you were driving. So more likely it will incriminate you for being at fault in the accident, because it can see what you're doing, but it can't see what the other cars are doing. So I was sitting in an intersection and had slightly turned to go left because it was a stop sign, and I reached the stop sign and I was about to go left, and then this P-plater came from the opposite direction, went through the stop sign and cut across in front of me. Now, because I was facing to turn, had started my movement into that curve, I was not facing straight ahead. Had I been facing straight ahead, then it may have picked up that car. But because I was slightly turned into the turn, facing maybe, not 45 degrees away from the straight ahead, but facing a bit into the turn, there was actually no evidence that that P-plater had gone through that stop sign and cut across in front of me. All you saw was I stopped for a car and it drove past. Now, there was no evidence that that car wasn't coming straight, and it would be my word against their word. Actually, the good thing is that because we were coming up to that intersection and they were coming up in the intersection, you could see that they were approaching. You couldn't see what they were doing at the time of crossing. I mean, they might have gone into the intersection before me, so there would be no evidence for them having proceeded before I proceeded. So it really wouldn't have helped me. So my belief is that at all times you should try to avoid being in an accident. It is simply not worth the time, the stress involved. So if you
turn right,
if you can avoid if you can avoid being in an accident by being a defensive driver, to me that's a much better situation. Better to stop than to hit somebody, even if you were totally in the right. Now, I actually did. Most states in Australia are no fault, no blame is required for an accident, but I think I read that Queensland, they still attribute the blame to one or the other driver. So I thought that was interesting, because we're one country, but we live the country with different rules, and so allocating blame to one party in Queensland, I think it's Queensland versus most of the rest of the country, has implications, possibly for insurance, possibly legally. So it's basically, you have an accident, it's an accident, nobody's at fault. So it's no blame. And what happens in that situation if you want to chase them for whatever, or the insurance wants to chase them? Well, so an expensive dash cam, $800-900.
in 500 meters exit.
Why would you spend that much money on a dash cam? And I couldn't justify it, but some people, they want to spend that money, that's their choice. If it wasn't doing videos, I would simply have a HD, a full HD dash cam, and I'd be more than happy with that. The storage requirements are less, it produces a good enough image. The only slight advantage is that it doubles the distance between you and the car in front of you, that you can actually read the number plate. So apart from that, most of the other information doesn't really make much difference. And you can get some good Navman dash cams. I like them because I know how their files are structured, their data is structured. I can use their data, their GPS data. So I know how to do it. I've got code set up
Exit.
to use that data. So I tend to go for that brand. It's been okay for me. There may be other brands that are better, but it's just what I've fallen into. And most of the dash cams have 128 gigabyte. Some of the other brands may be limited to 32 gigabyte. I like more, and one of the traps that people get to with dash cams is they think it's recording all of their driving on this tiny little card. They have no clue it's only recording a few hours of driving, and it keeps on overriding it. So you go to work, you come back, and then you go to work tomorrow and come back, and then the next day you've overridden the first day. So if you got booked for doing something wrong, that evidence that you might potentially have goes. So what I do is I copy my drives off and on a regular basis onto an external drive. But who would be bothered to do that if you didn't want the drives themselves? So if you're driving 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, 10 hours, with 128 gigabyte in this card, you would be lucky to get 1 week's worth of driving. With a 256 gigabyte card, you could get maybe 2 weeks. The Navman 160, I believe it is, it does full HD, and it can handle up to 256. So you might get a month. Now a month, I think, is the sweet spot, because you generally will get a speeding fine or a parking fine or some sort of fine within 2 to 3 weeks of it occurring. And if you've got the evidence, there goes a car that came out of nowhere and is speeding like anything. There's always one. And that's a good thing. There is only usually one, maybe two. He actually came, I think, from the right-hand side, just quickly across. I didn't even see him go across until the last glance, and then caught him in the mirror going up the left-hand side. So, and I was about to change lanes, but there was nobody when I looked, and he just came from the far right lane. Oh, I think maybe, oh yes, I've turned off too early. I was supposed to go down to Tram Road and that, so didn't quite follow the route suggested, but not a big issue, because I can get home this way just as equally. So I'll adjust. So sorry about that. I was going to follow the map the whole way as it suggested and see how long it took. So anyway, the main thing is that you're getting a feel for organic maps, or organic map. I'm not sure if it's a singular or plural. And it actually is doing quite a reasonable job. And if you look at the map, I mean, they do say that these maps are very clear. And if you look at Google Maps, there is so much clutter, and Waze is not much better. This map is very clear. And if you're looking up something, if I'm looking up something on Google Maps and I want to see the street name, it is very, very difficult to find the street or see the street name.
Recalculating the route.
It just doesn't show. Whereas with this, as I zoom in, I can see, first of all, the major streets, and then the next level of streets, and then the more minor streets. And then I can see every street name that when I've been checking it. So, and then if I keep on zooming in, it will show me the house lot numbers, which I don't really generally need, but it gives you that progressive level of detail without any of the clutter. So I think that's pretty good. Would I use this as opposed to Google Maps? You know, it's really hard to break your habits. Really, really hard. and I use Google Maps and for navigation, and I use my own application for speed cameras and alerts to the speed limits. So it will be hard for me to break that habit. I feel like my data is more thorough than the OpenStreetMap data for Victoria, for the parts that I've actually done, because I put a lot of effort in making that data more correct. So if I put the same effort into modifying the maps, the OpenStreetMap data, so that would flow through potentially in a month or a couple of months when they update the data, then I would achieve a similar result without having spent the last 12 months trying to build a suitable application. 12 months is a bit long, probably about 8 or 9 months, because it's been fairly stable in that time. In addition to that, this application runs in the background. It can run offline. My application can't do that. So I really do have to ask the question seriously, should I even continue putting time and effort and resources into my application? So I've got still some slight advantages. Well, first of all, the speed limit and speed that I'm actually travelling is much larger, again, probably double the size of what's on this display. So it still allows me to far more easily see the speed limit of the roads that I'm on. It's more accurate because I've actually put a lot of time and effort into going through the split zones area. There's only probably less than 15 split zone areas which I haven't got 100% right in the system, but I know already there's multiple areas that aren't covered thoroughly in this application, but over time, with people putting the effort in, that could exceed what I've done. Mine doesn't cover interstate really. Some of Tasmania, but I've not made that available because it's not thorough enough. So at the end of the day, this does cover all of Australia. So if I'm travelling, and I don't, in mine's on a state-by-state basis, this you just simply drive and you go from one state to another. You don't have to change anything. So lots of advantages for this application over my own application.
In 500 meters, exit.
So, and thank you for allowing me to do this test, or enabling me to do this test, because by doing this test, I'm actually forcing myself to get used to this application and comfortable with the application. So now already there's one thing in this application that beats Google Maps for me, and that is that it enables me to select don't use unpaved roads, because in Tasmania that's it. Google Maps sent me onto a dirt road for four-wheel drives. So this type of application fixes that one issue. Google Maps, I don't know if I can save a route, but one of the things I do on Google Maps is I go and do a route, I adjust the route, I save that route, and then I send that route back to myself. And so when I go to actually drive that route, naively at the start, I thought that's the route I'd get back. But when I bring that route up, it turns around and changes it back to the route it thinks is where I want to go, not the one that I've painstakingly mapped out. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not I can actually
recalculating the route.
Maybe do routes and store the routes and bring them back up later. Another thing that I found on the bike rides that I did is that often
in 500 meters, enter the roundabout.
Often what I'd have
then
to do
take the
is
first exit.
to get the route Google Maps would send me on the bike path, but when it suited it, it would throw me onto a road, and I didn't want to. I wanted to keep on going on a bike path. So I'd have to do it in stages. But the problem is, once I'd completed a stage, it wouldn't automatically continue onto the next stage. I don't know if this application works any better than that, but that's one thing I need to test. Because if I put in some stops along
Enter the
way
roundabout.
force the path,
Then take the first exit.
and this this route that it's trying to take me onto, that was going to send me left down there, down Serpells Road.
In 400 meters, keep left. Then in 400 meters, turn left. Recalculating the route. In 400 meters, turn left.
Yeah, which would have taken me to Williamson's Road, and I can only turn left there, so no right turn. So it would have sent me back down the hill, which was, so it's not giving me as good a route as what I
Turn
want.
left.
Actually, surprisingly, why it didn't just take me all the way through to here, which is the shortest direction, shortest route, shortest time. There's no reason for it to go the other direction.
In 400
So the routing-
meters, exit. Then go straight.
Yeah, the routing isn't as good as what it could be. And when you don't know an area, you wouldn't have a clue that there's better routes to take than the ones it's suggesting. So, yeah, but Google Maps has sent me in Tasmania recently, sent me on a couple of routes that I would not have wanted to go on at all. Whereas Magic Earth, when I tested the same start and end points, sent me on the route that I would have wanted to go on. So really, it's sometimes maybe it's best to just check the route and do a manual check through the route. rather than
Exit.
just assume that you're going to
Then
do
go
the route.
straight.
Now, coming out of that street, Horton Street there, Google Maps, if I put in a route up to Doncaster Shopping Town, will tell me to come out there and turn right straight onto there, straight onto Foot Street. That's actually an illegal right turn. That's changed probably 12 months ago, maybe even longer. This Organic Maps, Magic Earth, they get that correct. You can only come out of there and turn left. So that's why when earlier today the map said turn left, go up the hill and do a U-turn. That's why it did that. But Google Maps is wrong. And I've submitted multiple times for that to be corrected. And they have corrected things in the past that I've submitted. But this one, they've just said no. And when I look, they can't check their maps because they don't drive that street often enough to have it updated. So I actually provided the video footage. I provided the pictures and still no. So, whereas if that was the case for here, and when that changed, somebody went in and changed this and made it right. You don't have to worry about a bureaucracy that sits on it for years. So Google Maps, in all fairness, they have to do a great deal of mapping stuff. So there's many changes across the world. But when you submit it, and you're a regular, then maybe they should check it a little bit more thoroughly. So so at least you know with this type of map, OpenStreetMaps, you're probably going to get the change.
Go straight. Then you'll arrive.
And so there's advantages and disadvantages of every piece of software. So thank you again for joining me on this trip. And until the next time. Actually, when this road was being made like this, this used to be a dedicated right turn lane, but when they made the change, I could see that they incorporated the dedicated right turn with the right turn for Williamson's Road, and I let them know that I felt that that could be a problem. Me, for example, holding up a whole row of cars because these come around the corner here, and basically their response was nothing that they could do about it, and they could.
You have
put a light
arrived.
down there, but they didn't want to do anything, so they've made it worse for some cars there. It doesn't happen that often, so not a really big deal. But if I was coming down there, I'd always sit in the left just in case. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and until the next video.